Hello everybody, how's it going, and welcome back to the As Always podcast. This is episode 168. I'm one of your hosts, James, and I'm joined as always by Tyler.
As always, how's it going, my friend?
I'm doing pretty good, how you doing?
I'm doing very well. Happy to be here for another episode of the As Always podcast. Bit different today because it's a Spoilercast episode of the As Always podcast, but a regular numbered episode, and that's why it's a little delayed.
True.
This time around.
Yeah.
Well, it's part of the reason. It's a good excuse.
It's not the whole reason, no. But...
No, it's not the whole reason. We'll get into the whole reason. But yeah, we are going to be talking about House of the Dragons, Game of Thrones, premiere, new spinoff series, full spoilers. So if you haven't seen it, you're not a Game of Thrones fan, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
But this is what it is. Go watch it. I highly recommend it. And we'll be talking full spoilers, theories, all that sort of stuff. And that includes the original Game of Thrones series. I'm sure we'll get into I don't know how much we'll talk about it. We might not talk about it at all. But just in case, I'm sure we'll be throwing shit out there from the original 8 seasons of Game of Thrones as well. So just sort of like keep that in the back of your mind. But yeah, how are you doing, James?
Oh, I'm doing pretty well. Just vibing, just doing bits and bobs. Just vibing. I'm doing pretty well.
Yep. I got almost no sleep last night. So this is a midweek recording, which isn't normal. So it's sort of like I don't know what's going on. But I woke up about 2:30 in the morning last night, and I didn't get back to sleep till 5:30, and I had to get up at 6:30 for work.
That is rough.
So it's sort of like it's always the fucking way where it's like I may as well just fucking get up at this point, but of course that's when I fall asleep for an hour, and then I wake up feeling like I've got no sleep, and I'm like, oh god, I'm a zombie. And I realized it's because, and this is what I was like, this trip is coming up very fast in a few weeks overseas. And there's a few little things that like haven't been sorted because there's got so many problems with airlines at the moment with how fucking hectic they are, people getting back to traveling, the COVID rules, all that sort of shit. And obviously all the years of layoffs, downsizing, refinancing of these airlines and travel companies. There's a lot of shit going on at the moment. And they've moved some of my flights, and now there's like a stopover I have like 45 minutes to go from a stopover in the US to get to an international departure to get to London. And I'm like, how the fucking 45 minutes? It's not possible. Initially wasn't. There was a 3-hour layover, enough time, and now there's not because the two London flight moved back, and to that layover place, I think it's Philly. That went forward. So, and I've tried to like call them, and there's like everyone's like, oh, unless you're flights in the next 24 hours, use our like change flight request forms. And I did it weeks ago, and I haven't fucking heard anything. They're like 48 hours, we'll get back to you. I haven't fucking heard from them. And I realized that but there's more than that, but there's a couple things like that. A hotel was fucked up, things like that. But I woke up and I was realizing that I was just panicking for 3 hours, stressing about, because I've been putting off organizing shit. I'm like, I'll do that tomorrow. And I just hadn't done it. And today I did it. And I was really like, I feel better today. I feel way better right now. That makes sense. Because I got no sleep, and I realized I'm like, oh, it's catching up with me now. I'm stressing because I've procrastinated multiple things. Still haven't sorted out the flight, so I'm still going to hear back. But honestly, I've just looked up other flights. I'm like, it's a couple $100. I'm like, I'll fucking buy a new flight and then get a refund on one of the old flights later down the road. I'm not that fussed as long as I get to places on time. This is a question for you. This is an interesting question to start the As It Was podcast. We will thank, of course, our producers that make the show happen. So if you like what you're listening to here and you want to see more, head over to patreon.com/as always. For just as little as $1 a month, you get exclusive access to over 145 episodes of the Clubhouse podcast, the best podcast on the internet. It's powered by you, the people of the People's Podcast. So thank you to our producers that make this show happen. This could be you if you head over to patreon.com/as always. Thank you to Ollie the Superior, Ollie, Baron, King, Damien, the Not Orange Gnome, Ferentino, Flash Paradox, King Richard III, Olbrick, Ryan, Hafer, and Ballsack47. Thank you, Swift Insights, to empower this podcast. James, question for you that I just thought of. we're all different types of people, and I'm one of few, at least in my friend group. I'm more about my time in terms of what I value than my money. How are you on that?
Hang on
like,
a sec.
I'm someone
Hold on.
that's
the,
like...
The door is... Someone's at
I
the
just
door.
heard the doorbell.
Give me a sec. I don't know
Oh
what's going
my
on. Give me
God.
a minute.
Unbelievable. Okay, so I'll explain to you, ladies and gentlemen. I am my time over money person. I don't value... Like, I value money, but I don't value money as much as I value my time. And a lot of other people are like, I'm really strict on their budget, really strict on saving. And don't get it twisted. Like, I'm responsible, and I obviously have things I want to save for, and things I do save for, and obviously I'm taking this trip. But in general, I'm a time efficient. What's going to get me in and out of this place as fast as possible? What's going to get me to the place as fast as possible? What's going to get this done for me? I'm not as worried about the time. I can hear conversations going on in the background. James, what is happening? What's happening? There's the door.
Yo.
Is he back? Yeah. Who was that?
It was Elva. She locked herself out.
I thought I heard, like, I was like, is that Elva in the background? Like, it said, like, I was like, what's going on?
Yeah.
I was going to say, she should answer the fucking door. I was just explaining. I just said, I'm much more value my time over how much I value my money sort of person. So, like, if I can get something done quicker, if I don't have to do something, I can pay for it, I'm doing that.
Yeah.
If I can get in and out, whatever's the quickest, I don't give a fuck. I don't need to, like, hunt for the bargains or the sales, you know? If I see one, great. I'm not hunting for it. I'm just not that person. I wish I was. I'd probably have a big house right now and a lot of nice things, but I'm much happier this way.
Yeah.
I've done a lot more with my time. I can tell you that right now. How are you with it? Are you a time person, or are you like a strict budget, can't spend money type person?
Oh no, I'm very similar to you. Yeah,
good. I appreciate that.
My dad, because I tend to not value money as much, and I'm like, it's fine, like I'll just pay for it if it's quicker. My dad will, because he very much does value money more, will, like, he'll usually just do it for me. Like, if it's something and he knows I'm going to do it, he's like, no, I'll find it for you. I'll find the cheapest thing. And I'm like, all right, if you want to.
Yeah.
But I just
that's so
don't care that much. It's just, like, it's too much, like, you're wasting a lot of time by searching around for, like, you know...
That's how I feel.
The cheapest thing. It's like, I could have done the thing, you know?
Yep. And then I'm doing another thing. And then now I'm doing another thing.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I could have done 2 or 3 things by the time you've done one thing, just so you can save a couple bucks.
Yeah.
You know? And sometimes, in fairness, it's worth it. Sometimes it is. But I feel like the general rule and the way I live my life is it's not.
Yeah.
My time's more valuable than my money.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it depends on the thing. Sometimes, you know, you'll be saving a lot more. But if you're saving a lot more, usually it's way easier to find that. Like, you don't have to really go searching for it.
Yeah, there's definitely a line.
Yeah.
Yeah,
sure.
There's definitely a line of things I'm like, look, fuck it, I'll just pay for it. Something I haven't, like, I feel like you wash your own car. You know what I mean? Like, that's how I was raised. You wash your own car inside out. But recently I'd sort of neglected my car, and I was like, you know what? I'm paying someone to do this shit. I'm not fucking doing it myself. I don't have the time. What? In and out, like $100? Fuck it. Let's do that. 50 quid. You know? Yeah. Let's do it. In and out of my... Yeah, fucking let's do it. And it'll be way better than I can do of it. And also it'll be done way faster.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not going to do that all the time. Most of the time I'm going to clean my own car.
I've never cleaned my own car.
Really?
No. My dad does. No. My dad cleans his own car. I cannot be fucked with that. I'd rather someone else do it. It's easier.
It is efficient with time. I guess I would mum and dad would give me money to wash their cars growing up. So it was never a big deal job.
Yeah.
So I think that's why I've always thought that. But I was like, ooh, I'm fucking paying someone to wash my car. Like, if I had millions of dollars, the things I would spend it on would be time efficient things. You know, like if I won the lotto, it wouldn't be, I wouldn't just hoard it all and then buy like yachts and shit. I wouldn't care. I live in a normal house. Tell you what the shit I'd buy. Personal, like a nutritionist. So they fucking cook meals. I'm not doing any of that shit. That's being done. And someone's cleaning the house. That's being done. I'd rather live in a moderate house and pay people to do things I don't want to do. That's what I would do with my millions of dollars if I had it. You know, I would rather live that way than live in a mansion and have to clean that myself.
Yeah.
You know, I'm never washing a car ever again. I'm never, unless I want to. Like, I do like cooking, to be fair, but like, I would definitely pay someone to cook most of the time. And I would also definitely pay someone to clean the house.
Yeah.
Because again, would be better than I could do it. Would be better than I could do it. I cleaned my whole fucking apartment today. This is a great podcast. I'm supposed to be cleaning my house. But dude, it took so long and it's not that big, but like once in a while I go extra. Like I'm going hard. The shower's getting like hard scrubbing. The corners of every room, hard scrubbing. Yeah. Like rarely do I go that hard, but I am a clean person. Pretty like neat, clean freak in general. Like if I don't make my, like there's not a day I don't, like the bed's made as soon as I get up. That's the first job being done. I don't ever have, like I don't have a messy room at any point. Everything's where it should be. I've got bags packed all ready for tomorrow. I've got gym bag work. Like I'm an organized person. But all I would do, that's how I operate. Efficiency. It's got to be, you know, it's got to be in place. And that's how I guess I see money as well.
Yeah.
How can it make my life more efficient? Not how can I get the most with the smallest amount?
It makes sense.
Yeah, I think so. I'm glad you operate the same way. I just find so many people, especially in my life, think I'm an insane person.
Yeah. Elva definitely doesn't like it that much because she's very much wants the cheapest possible thing. So it's a bit, but you know, I don't mind.
I like nice shit as well.
Yeah, true. Exactly. Like I
want nice stuff.
Like often Elva will buy something and it's shit. And I'm like, well, how much did it cost you? You know, like you bought something that's really fucking cheap. Like obviously it's going to be shit.
People brag to you when people brag to you about like, oh my God, I got this like $20. How good is that? And I'm like, yeah, but it's shit. I'd rather spend $100 on that same thing and it'd be good quality.
Yeah.
So I'm going to break in a minute,
yeah.
You know? And I don't like, I don't know. I like nice shit. I like nice shit.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. There was one topic before we get into House of, is it House of the Dragon or Dragons? Is it plural? House of the Dragon.
It's dragon, right?
Just
one
dragon.
One dragon.
Yeah. There's more than one dragon.
There are more than one dragon,
but it's only one dragon family.
Yes, so it's I guess that's where the dragon.
The dragon. Yeah. But it is about another fantasy show, The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power. Well, not really about The Rings of Power, but it's about Lord of the Rings. But The Rings of Power show is, of course, coming out in 2 weeks.
It is.
And I've somehow got to not watch that, avoid all spoilers for another few weeks until I'm with fucking David.
Mental.
As I said, I'd watch it with him, but that's... Oh, God. I got to go insane. A lot more nervous for that show anyway. But there's been some changes with the rights to The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit material.
Yeah.
And there's now been rumors, speculation, reports, news, if you will, that the new rights owners of The Lord of the Rings want to potentially make a whole bunch of fucking spin-off movies and TV shows.
Now I love a good
based
spin-off.
on The Lord of the Rings. So this is new rights holder Embracer Group are exploring additional movies based on the iconic characters such as Gandalf, Aragorn, Gollum, Galadriel, Eowyn, and other characters from the literary works of J.R.R. Tolkien.
Oh no. It sounds very when Fox tried to make their own X-Men universe and it was a fucking disaster. That's what it sounds like. You know, like when they did the X-Men Origins Wolverine and they were going to do one for like Magneto and one for like Storm and stuff. Just standalone films for these heroes for some reason. It reminds me of that, which was, it was bad. So, yeah, I think it'll be funny if they do it. In a bad
James,
way.
this is maybe my worst nightmare.
Yeah.
This is maybe my worst nightmare.
Tyler, you love Lord of the Rings. They're just going to do more of it. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be like Marvel. Me sorted.
If I never ever for the rest of my life see another Lord of the Rings new piece of media, it'll be too soon.
Yeah.
And I mean that is, there's nothing to add.
Yeah.
There is Tolkien's literary works that I reread and will continue to reread for the rest of my life. There are also the greatest film trilogy of all time in The Lord of the Rings by Peter Jackson that I rewatch, and will continue to rewatch until my dying days. You can't beat either of those things. You'll never make movies better than those. I don't need more. I don't need any more. They're perfect. Everything the way it is perfect. It has been perfect, other than the Hobbit trilogy, for 25 years. Not 25, 20 years. We don't need any more. I don't need the Rings of Power show. It's happening. It's what it is. Fuck it. But dude, if they try to remake The Lord of the Rings,
that'd be fucking funny. There's no way. I feel like you can't do to Lord of the Rings fans what has been done to Star Wars and Marvel fans, because it's a different fan base. You know, like I don't
and that's why I've always been okay with Star Wars and Marvel doing this shit, because I'm like, I don't really like. I love Star Wars. I love Marvel, but it doesn't really matter. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter. None of them have ever been perfect. There's been a lot that's really great that I love. Captain America films, Endgame, like there's a Iron Man, like there's a lot of Marvel that I fucking love, but none of it's perfect.
Yeah.
Except Captain America and his arc. Other than that, but then you got Star Wars, and I love a lot of the Star Wars films, but none of them are perfect. Not one of those. The Lord of the Rings trilogy are perfect. They're perfect. And what are we going to do? Have a Gandalf movie and it's not Ian McKellen?
Yeah.
Have an Aragorn film, it's not Viggo Mortensen? Galadriel, we've got a Galadriel show about to happen.
Yeah, it's an odd choice.
Eowyn, like having spin-offs. Why? What the fuck are we talking about?
It's everybody wants.
You're not going to have Liv Tyler play Arwen?
They want their successful universe, don't they? That's what everybody wants. And they're like, oh, we could do it with Lord of the Rings. We can do it with, Harry Potter, with Star Wars, with Marvel, with DC, with whatever.
I've never hated Marvel more than I do right now. It's got nothing to do with
Marvel, and as much as I love Marvel, has, in a way, like, not completely, because I do think the cinema industry is still there, but
Tom Cruise saved it.
There was a period there where it did feel like Marvel had destroyed the film industry, where like you got what's on at the cinema, it's just these major universe franchises. Marvel, it's Star Wars is dominating Disney Plus streaming platforms. It's these standalone films, these these movies that used to do well are now just being absolutely just buried underneath Marvel stuff, and it just sucks. And like as well, like Marvel right now is it's exactly what, people that always hated it said that it was when it used to be good. It's just become that. It's like now it is just nothing. Like, it doesn't mean anything anymore. There's nothing there. Like, and that's what happens to, that's going to happen to most major things if you keep going through it, and then you just end up in this position where you're just putting stuff out, and you're forced to put stuff out, and you don't really know what you're doing, and you just, whatever. And it sucks that because it's so successful, everyone then wants a piece of that, and it means that any other, like, franchise that has, a cult following or popularity, like Lord of the Rings, or something like Game of Thrones. I mean, they're jumping into spin-offs now with House of the Dragon. Obviously, we'll talk about that later. But it's like, is that the start of something else? Like, are we going to end up going down that same path with Game of Thrones? What are they going to do with Lord of the Rings, like, after Rings of Power? It's like they're just getting their foot in the door, and then where are they going to take that down the line? I mean, who really knows? But yeah, I don't know. Oh. Fuck. Oh, for fuck's sake. Oh, God damn it.
Have we lost James? He's back. You there? Why the fuck can't I hear you again?
Oh, wait.
Yep, there we go.
I'm here.
Yep, hello. Yep.
Hello.
There he is. Hello.
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 Fucking Christ. All right.
Yeah.
Where were we?
The internet died, but we were talking about how Marvel's wrecked cinema until Tom Cruise, of course, came out with Top Gun Maverick, saved cinema. That we do know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But ultimately, I'll tell you what. The fact that there's people out there that are Harry Potter fans, there's people out there that are Marvel fans or Star Wars fans, and I've always felt better than you. Because I'm a Lord of the Rings guy, and my movies are perfect, and no one's going to ruin it. Because Tolkien's literary works will never be disrespected by creating spin-offs and solo films and shit like that. But here we are with the possibility happening, and it's my worst fucking nightmare. There's nothing I want less than anything ever to come out that is Middle-earth related, that is in film or television. The fact that this Rings of Power show is coming out, I've had to accept over the years. And I'm hoping, against all odds, that it doesn't suck. But so far, I mean, the production quality looks amazing. The sets look amazing. I love who they've got playing Galadriel. But other than that, I don't really know what the story is. There's only 38 pages in the Silmarillion about the fall of Numenor, about what this story's about. So I'm like, how the fuck are they going to make seasons of a show based on it without making a bunch of shit up that isn't Tolkien? And then we're treading on, other waters. And yeah, I'm concerned overall for the Lord of the Rings and the state of it moving forward, thanks to the state of Hollywood and movies right now. And it's about universes, not franchises anymore. It used to be about a series or a trilogy, and now it's like, no, there needs to be a universe. It needs to have its own world.
Yeah, to pump out content for. There's nothing I hate more than calling movies and TV shows content. I feel like it's so bleak. I don't know if this is just me, but it fucking kills me every time I do it, because it's become such a normal thing to do. Like, you call it content. It's just content.
Oh, mate. Martin Scorsese's rolling over in his grave, and he's not even dead yet.
I know.
You know what I mean?
I know.
He's not even dead yet, James. He's already rolling. He's going into that. Martin Scorsese's going into his coffin on his stomach. He's not going to be on his back. He'll be going head first into that coffin.
Oh, my God.
He's already ready to go.
It's rough.
They'll have one of those massage table face gaps for him. That's Martin Scorsese's coffin.
God damn
I want that to be the thumbnails. Martin Scorsese getting lowered into a coffin.
Oh my God.
And you and I are just standing there next to it. And then it's just like Kevin Feige laughing in the background.
He's
Might
so
be a bit
happy.
too much to ask.
He's too happy.
Yeah,
Mate. He's so happy. He's 60
Yeah.
movies slated for the next 2 months. He's so happy about it.
Yeah.
He's like, it's just a story we want to tell.
There's every hour, there's 2 hours of content dropping from Marvel.
We're so passionate about this story we want to tell with these characters we love, and it's just every hour is a new Marvel property is coming out. You don't know how to.
Yeah.
You can't live your life. You have.
There's
to put
actually
it on
not
hold.
enough time on Earth to consume how fast they're putting out Marvel.
There's physically not enough time. You can't do it.
There's not enough time.
No.
There's not enough time. Yeah. Even if all you did was watch Marvel content, there's not enough time.
No, exactly.
That's how much Marvel content there is.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be a competition between Twitter users as to who can consume the most Marvel content at once. They're going to have it on 2 separate screens. So on one screen you got
that's
Moon
the
Knight
only way
season
to do
4, and on the other one you got Loki season 7, and you're watching them back to back, and then there's a crossover moment, and it happens at 4 minutes and 28 seconds in episode 3.
At the same time,
and it's at the same time. You get to see it from two different angles. On your 2 screens.
But it's the same scene.
Yeah, and it's amazing. And
but
you pog in real life.
Yeah. Exactly. And that's what will happen with The Lord of the Rings, I reckon. And there's nothing I want less.
Yeah, it's quite... it's not a nice prospect.
Yeah. But for now, I'm still going to enjoy being better than all of you. Until they actually do ruin it. So hopefully I've got some time.
Yeah.
Well, I could only have a couple of weeks.
You could, true.
And they somehow ruin it. But I feel like that's so separate from the movies. It'll be when they like try to do like a fucking Gandalf show.
Yeah.
Or an Aragorn movie. That's when they'll fuck with it.
Yeah, I guess so. Because I mean, to be fair, it's already not perfect if you include The Hobbit. So,
The Hobbit's a separate story. It's not a prequel. People mix that up.
I mean, but
they tried to make them. They tried to make the movies
connected,
a prequel.
right?
They tried to make it is connected.
Like Frodo's in it.
It is
Gandalf's in it.
Well, okay, you're talking about the movies.
Yeah.
The book is not a prequel to the Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, but the book is also good,
is connected,
right? So it wouldn't be ruined.
The book is
anyway.
It's my favorite book. It's my favorite book of all time. The Hobbit book is outstanding. It's perfection.
Yeah.
But you're right. The movie, they tried to connect it and make it a prequel. Well, that's the problem with the Hobbit movies, is they tried to make it a Lord of the Rings prequel and not the Hobbit book. Yeah. The Hobbit book is the Hobbit book. It's separate to the Lord of the Rings. Gandalf and Bilbo are in them, but that's about it. And he finds the ring, but the ring has nothing to do with the Hobbit story. It's about Erebor.
Yeah.
And Thorin Oakenshield and Smaug.
Yeah. But the point being...
But in the movies, they tried to be like, but Sauron's rising and that's connected to this, and, and it's like, no. That's not a part of the... you're trying to make it a thing that it isn't. And yes, you are correct, but that doesn't... But you don't have to watch the Hobbit movies.
But you wouldn't have to watch any of the spin-off shows, but it would still be shit, wouldn't it?
Yeah, well, that's my point. It's more of just like, I just like having the Lord of the Rings. Yeah, the Hobbit's there, but I like the Hobbit enough. Like,
yeah, it's also not an ongoing thing. It's not like we're on season 7 of the Hobbit. Like, it was a one and done.
It's a thing that happened. Yeah. It had some really good moments. There's a lot of things I liked about it. There's a lot of things I did not like about it. It's no like, it's not Star Wars. You know what I mean? It's better than the worst Star Wars.
Yeah,
that's not saying a lot, because there's some pretty bad Star Wars out there.
Definitely are.
Yeah.
I guess it's this idea of like a perpetual Lord of the Rings universe that's just like sounds bad and unappealing, rather than it just
because
being
no one but Marvel's got it right. And even then, they haven't got
even then they
Marvel have got it right.
Up.
Marvel have got it right, but they've just gone like they've gone to the next step where it's like, after you get it right, what can you do from there?
Get it wrong.
Well, no one knows. They're the only people that have attempted to go beyond.
Yeah.
And they haven't nailed it. It's like catching lightning in a bottle, doing a once in a lifetime thing twice. It can't be done.
Yeah.
It can't be done. And everyone else is trying to do that one thing, and no one's nailing it. No one's nailing it.
Yeah, true.
Like, people have done a few things that are good. Like, obviously we've heard a lot of them. Like I've heard amazing things about Better Call Saul, and that's a spin-off to Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
But that's like its own thing. It's a spin-off, and it's what it is, and that's it.
Yeah.
They did do the El Camino thing, but there's a few Breaking Bad bits of material, right? Game of Thrones, we're about to get into House of the Dragon. Mm-hmm. That's what so far we've got one episode of a spin-off show, but they're working on another bunch of spin-offs.
Yeah.
Who eventually they wear off. They might be good for a little while, but eventually they're going to wear off.
Yeah, it becomes too much. It becomes oversaturated, and that's when it becomes like it's just tiresome.
And there's things that don't need it ever and ever. I mean, Fast and the Furious franchise is probably the worst franchise ever produced ever. And then they made the like Hobbs and Shaw abortion of a movie,
they did make
like
that,
as well, because they're like, let's make spin-offs. And it's like,
that movie
flopped.
Let's
make. Well, what do you expect?
Yeah, well, I can't wait for Fast and Furious 10. They're going to space, all right? I can't wait. They're going to drive cars on the moon. Vin Diesel's going to love it.
Yeah, righto. Whatever.
Exciting, man.
Fucking terrible. It's just so awful.
I love Fast and Furious. I've not seen them for a while, to be fair. I've not watched the new ones. I just I keep the old ones in my memory, and I love them.
Yeah. They're so bad. They're so bad. I'd rather watch Jurassic World trilogy than watch any Fast and Furious movie.
So
I'd rather watch all 3 Jurassic World movies than watch one Fast and Furious. They just get worse,
and I've not even seen them.
Yeah, I haven't seen the third one. The first one was, I couldn't tell you one thing that happens. Chris Pratt's in it, I know that.
He is in it, and he sticks his hand out to the raptors. He's like, I can control you, and he does it like 7 times. It's like, dude, we get it, man. You can control the dinosaurs. Fucking hell.
They trust him.
They're friends.
Yeah, but like you have all these different versions of spin-offs or universe builders. Jurassic World's another example. Like Transformers, like a lot of people have done it.
Yeah.
The only people that have done it as hectic as Marvel of Star Wars have tried, and they've fucking failed miserably. Like again, there's things in it that are good that they do well. Because there'll be one-offs that's like, well, that show's good or that movie's good, but then the next thing they do is shit. And it's like, well, where does Star Wars, like, as a whole, how is it? And it's like, well, it's not great anymore.
Yeah, I'm trying to make it
and Marvel's still great.
Like, Star Wars is supposed to, I feel, be disconnected in its extended media. Like, that's the fun of a Star Wars. Whereas Marvel is, the fun of it is the interconnectedness of it. Star Wars is fun is the fact that every story is something different. Whereas what they've done with their extended media is like everyone's crossing over and there's cameos and it feels like the universe is tiny. And it's like, okay. But I'm excited for Cassian Andor, and I know you are too, so maybe that'll be the one. That'll be the winner, I think.
I probably won't watch it, to be fair.
No, I will not watch it. I'm done with
Star Wars. I haven't seen Moon Knight. Yeah, no. Obi-Wan was all I wanted. Once I saw Obi-Wan and I got my closure that I needed.
Yeah, once I saw Obi-Wan and that was the only thing I needed, and it was just absolutely not what I needed, I realised that it was either I start watching Star Wars or I kill myself one day.
Yes,
probably both.
Well, probably. I was going to say, well, I don't think one affects the other. If we're being honest with ourselves,
they're not mutually exclusive at all.
They're not mutually exclusive. No.
But yeah, no more Star Wars. I can't do it. I'm not watching anymore.
No more Star Wars. I haven't seen Moon Knight. I haven't seen Miss Marvel. I didn't watch She-Hulk.
I don't think I'm watching these Marvel shows anymore either. I think I'm done.
I do think I'm done with the shows.
Yeah, as well, I'm sick of it. I can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
Especially after watching the first episode of House of the Dragon and realizing that that's how you make a television show properly.
Well, let's get into it. Let's get into it because let's start off. Spoilers galore for House of the Dragon. House of the Dragon is the best spin-off, sequel, prequel, connected universe piece of material debut I've ever seen ever. Mm-hmm. That was 10 out of fucking 10. That first episode.
It was fucking fantastic.
Because there's 2 things they had to do for me, for it to be okay. Mm-hmm. I mean, obviously it's in the Game of Thrones universe, you got to make it feel like Game of Thrones. That's one thing, that's a separate thing. But there's two things I'm like, how can they do this? Because, and this isn't even just for me, this is to like be successful in my mind. Game of Thrones is known for its week-to-week connectedness. You're following the story. There's theories you're making. And each episode, especially towards the end, there was big moments, the wow moments, the reaction moments. And I'm like, I get that didn't happen early in the show. That was more later in the show. But they don't have the luxury of waiting 2 or 3 seasons before wow things need to happen. They have to have shit happen episode 1. But they also have to make it feel like old Game of Thrones to me, where it does feel well paced. It does feel like they're giving it time to breathe. It does feel like they're not rushing through a story. Mm-hmm. And I felt like this episode perfectly encapsulated the balance of that. It was just over an hour. I felt like the time was good. It didn't need to be any longer. But it also couldn't have been any shorter. I thought it was perfectly timed. It had wow moments, but not in a way of like trying to make you do big reveals because it hasn't earned that. It used shock factor to get those reaction moments out of you. And then it gave you the time to get to know the characters. And if you're someone that's watched the Game of Thrones show, it made it even easier to understand who everyone was, how they're all connected, how the world works. Because you already have a lot of that information. What you're seeing is who are these characters, where do they fit in, and what are their relationships? And it managed to explain to you all of that. And by the end of the first episode, I felt like I knew who everyone was, where everyone stood, and where the pieces were sort of moving. Then it also gave me some wow shock moments and even some cool little reveals there. James, what are your general overview thoughts of House of the Dragon episode 1?
Yeah, I mean, spin-off shows have been a bit like hit or miss with, mostly miss, with things that, we've seen recently. And so it was a bit of a worry, like, how are they going to handle this? Like, Game of Thrones didn't end so well. There was a lot of issues. Like, how are they going to bring this back to what made Game of Thrones successful while also making it unique?
Can I ask a quick question, interject, just of something you mentioned?
Yeah.
Did you feel like, because Game of Thrones ended bad, that you weren't even sure whether you wanted to be back in Westeros? Because that's how I felt. They almost needed to... I'm like, look, I'm excited to watch this, but until it starts, I don't even know if I want this show. I don't even know if I want to be back in Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do I want to be back in Westeros?
Yeah, I definitely felt that too. It was even like when it got a bit closer to it coming out, I was definitely excited. Like when it came to watching it, I was like, I'm excited to watch this because there's so much about Game of Thrones that I did love. But I think leading up to it was like a bit like anxious. Is this going to be, are they going to get it right? Do they understand what made it successful in the first place? And you go into it and the show, not only does this establish a setup for a season to come and a show, to happen with multiple seasons and for it to just establish its world and its characters and its base, this episode also has a story in of itself, like a theme, a purpose too. It's not just saying, tune in next week and maybe something will happen. It's like, no, something happened in this episode. Like, it had a story to tell in this episode, which was always what was so fun about shows like Game of Thrones or Breaking Bad, traditional television shows where... you watch one episode and it establishes things and it connects and it moves forward like an overarching plot, but it also has a story to tell in that singular episode that you can get invested in, and that actually helps move the overarching plot along. So like the whole plot of this episode was, the king struggling with, his need to find an heir, his wife being pregnant, that whole plot line and how it ended up in the very end, and you sort of invested in that and this family and like that struggle, and it all just worked together to tell a story and then set up, well, now we're moving into a second episode. Where's it going to go from here, sort of thing. And it was just, it delivered on what I wanted from a television show. And I was like, this is great. And then on top of that, it also managed to bring me back into Game of Thrones, remind me why I loved it. It did all of it was paced so wonderfully. It wasn't like rushing from thing to thing to thing like we're so used to from like season 8 of Game of Thrones. It was like really taking its time. The politics was so fun. Like, it just felt like Game of Thrones. Just like seeing people sitting around a fucking table talking about shit. It was fucking great. It was fucking brilliant. The small things were great. It was just overall just that. I just think, they nailed it for sure. Yeah,
I totally agree. And even just from the start where they're establishing the world and they give you that recap and and they're sort of going through the history and where we are in the world. And even doing for those more casual listeners or the casual viewers, where this connects to Game of Thrones, the show. And they sort of like did a bit of a prologue and then had the text and then highlighted 178 years before Daenerys Targaryen, essentially is what it was trying to say. But it had Rhaenyra, princess Rhaenyra was narrating, because I don't think a lot of people realize there's 2 actors that play this character. So this young one that was in this first episode will not be the actress that plays her for the show.
Yeah.
That's just the young version of her. There's an older actress that I assume will be in the next episode, and then that's it from there on. Which sort of sucks, because I thought the actress was really great.
She was really good, yeah. She was very good. They were all very good, actually. The casting was really, really good. I think everyone nailed it.
Yeah.
It was really solid.
Yeah, I wasn't sure about King Viserys at first.
Right, okay.
He just felt like sort of a dude. Like, I didn't really feel like... Because I just feel like Targaryens, there's got to be something about him.
Right.
There's got to be a bit of, like... there's got to be a bit about him. A bit of an aura, a bit of a mysticism. But no, he grew on me throughout the episode. But it went through sort of... and established the relationships. And like you said... And I mean, it's called Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon. It is still a Game of Thrones happening here, and it is about the Iron Throne and who sits on the Iron Throne and why they need to sit in the Iron Throne, which we'll get into later in the episode. But it sort of just quickly established that Princess so you got Rhaenyra, and are they both Rhaenyra? Is the aunt also Rhaenyra?
I'm gonna be honest with you, it's gonna take me a few episodes to get to know all their names properly. I don't know who anyone is, I'm going to be honest. Well, I do, but also I can't remember their names. They're fucking Targaryen names. It's all weird. Yeah.
Well, you've got I'm just going to say Viserys and his sister.
Yeah.
Viserys is chosen as the next heir after his grandfather died. It wasn't actually his father, because his father, I think, had like 5 children, and then Viserys, I think it was his sister that is his wife, I think, because we do know the Targaryens used to interbreed.
They definitely did do
Targaryens. And then we have young Rhaenyra, who's sort of, I guess, our main character of the show. We see her flying in. So, okay. Prologue's great. We establish who the king is. We establish where this is set in the timeline. And it says it is now the 9th year of King Viserys Targaryen's reign, 172 years before the death of the Mad King Aerys and the birth of his daughter, Princess Daenerys Targaryen. So 172 years before Daenerys Targaryen. Then we see clouds. And I knew straight away, I'm like, fuck yeah. We're getting a dragon straight up. We're getting a straight up dragon straight away. Thoughts on the opening sequence of Rhaenyra. I keep fucking forgetting. I don't know their names.
Yeah,
I don't know the names.
Take a
I'm
bit
giving it a shot. It'll take a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's Rhaenyra. She flies in on her dragon and into King's Landing, and it's got its own sort of version of the Game of Thrones theme playing. Loved it. Don't know about you. As I was watching with a few of my friends, I literally, like, soon as she lands the dragon, I turn to Jared and he looks at me and he goes, I already fucking love this show. I'm like, yeah, me too. This is exactly, I'm so excited.
Yeah.
What did you think, just sort of that opening sequence there?
Yeah, no, I thought it was an establishing sort of shot that I think sort of worked to... It brings you back into the world of Game of Thrones. Like, obviously, King's Landing is a very iconic location, which I think was, it was seeing that again, and you got a dragon, and there was very sort of, with her flying on the dragon, and even with, like, the clothes she's wearing too, I feel like there was some Daenerys parallels there, just with some sort of, like... Yeah, just the way she was dressed and the way she looked. I think it was trying to draw a bit of a parallel there, which I think was interesting. But I think overall the way that it looked, I think it was just a really nice establishing shot. I think it was just, like, obviously very different from the way that Game of Thrones opens in its very first episode. But I think that is sort of to the benefit of the show, because it doesn't then try to be Game of Thrones. It tries to do its own thing, and I think it succeeds in doing that. And it really manages to sort of set the tone, because obviously we're following Targaryens in the show, which is the main point. And I think opening with a shot of a dragon and opening from the skies, I think is I just think it worked to solidify that this show is going in a bit of a different direction, which I think is the one thing I was worried about, is like, are they going to just copy Game of Thrones? Like, how are they going to set this apart? And it just felt like similar enough, but also, we're going somewhere new with it and doing what we should be doing with these characters and with this. And it just was, just a beautiful opening in general. The music was fantastic. It looked great, I think. I've seen a lot of people say the CGI was a bit off. I don't think it was in the opening shot. I think there was maybe some points in the middle where it was, but I think during the opening, I think it looked pretty solid overall.
I mean, it is a television show, and I'd rather them spend money on making just the show good than I'm not that bothered by some fucking CGI's not spot on point to look like it's a fucking real dragon. It's fucking television at the end of the day, like, Yeah. That's just me personally. As long as the show writing's good, it's probably more important than the CGI.
Yeah, way more important.
I really don't understand why people are so bent up about CGI. I'm like, I used to watch so much bullshit CGI and never complained about it. But now that, like, you can have good CGI if you've got $1 billion, every show better look like it's fucking the greatest CGI of all time. I think,
Yeah, I think as long as the show takes it seriously and they try their best, like, I don't think it really matters that much. I never maybe the CGI wasn't the most perfect thing in the world, but it didn't look bad. I don't think. I didn't think it.
No, I was never taken out by the CGI.
No,
personally,
I thought it looked fine.
It does well to establish certain relationships and how those certain events that happen later in the show will have those consequences. Obviously, Princess Rhaenyra visits her mother to check on her. She's pregnant at the time, with what everyone's hoping is. What King Viserys certainly hopes is his son, his firstborn son, and will then become heir to the Iron Throne. Now, we'll get onto that later, but you're just sort of establishing Rhaenyra's relationship with her mother and how close they are because she wants to check on her. And you sort of get that duty and where the women stand in this world. It's not quite even as advanced as it is in the time of the original Game of Thrones show. Where sure, women were treated like shit, but I just feel like even more so they're treated like shit here in the sense of there's not even a conversation about you having a role anywhere else, but you make babies and that's what you do. Yeah. That's your job. Then you see the small council meeting, you start to get a vibe of the politics, which we all love, the different roles of the different characters and who they are. And I guess as well, like really key important figures in the show. Otto Hightower, the Hand of the King, is an important one. He's and this is a family, the Hightower family, very important Game of Thrones family that we didn't see a lot of in the original Game of Thrones show. I believe the only Hightower we see is Gerald Hightower, who's the Lord Commander of the Kingsguard to the Mad King. And we see him at the castle of the Tower of Joy, Game of Thrones spoilers, when Ned kills him and Sir Arthur Dayne. They're the two Targaryen knights. So that's the only Hightower we really see, as far as I'm aware, in the Game of Thrones show. But they're obviously a lot more important and connected to the Targaryens here. Otto's the Hand of the King. We see his son and daughter, who are very important. Alicent Hightower, who also has two actresses as well, I've just found out. Emily Carey played her in this episode, and then you've got Olivia Cook, who's playing her later in the show when she's older. And I must say, she's, she looks okay. She's gorgeous. But anyway, that's one important family that we see. We've got Corlys Valerion, which is another family we don't see a lot of, but he is I'm not sure what his role was in the small council, but he's married to the king's sister who had a claim to the throne. Also named, no, not named Rhaenyra, Rhaenyra Targaryen, or Rhaenyra Valerion, since she's married to Lord Valerion. So you just sort of get a vibe of that. The Grand Maester is exactly the same as the Grand Maester from Game of Thrones. Love that. They kept that just very similar vibes. But you just sort of get a lay of the land and the introduction to, I guess, the other main character of the show, main villain at this point, Prince Daemon Targaryen, played by Matt Smith, who I thought Matt Smith did an amazing job.
Oh, he killed it. I'm so happy for him.
Yeah, he's
my boy.
He's a great actor.
He is.
Great actor.
He is, and he's really doing bits and bobs here.
And then you sort of get that scene. And I'm not really sure on his relationship with Rhaenyra, because he seemed to be quite fond of her, while she was a bit like cautious of him and knows what he's like. But also sort of a bit of admiration there. Like, even though they're the ones really that are fighting for the throne in terms of who's next in line, they seem to trust each other as well.
Yeah.
Did you get that vibe?
Yeah, I guess to an extent. I guess to me, it kind of felt like they were both sort of trying to, I don't know. I guess there was an element of trust there, I suppose. But I mean, we don't really know a great deal of, how close they are, I guess. But I guess I sort of got the sense that they were trying to, like, I don't know, maybe a conflict could emerge after this episode, now that, she has become
well, I think it's pretty clear Daemon wants the throne.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. But I think, I guess at this point, maybe he just doesn't see her as a threat.
No, I don't think he does at this point.
There's more of like a sort of just, general respect between the two of them, because I don't think she also, as much as she wanted to mean more to her father, I guess she also didn't think, I don't
think she ever wanted to be the heir.
Or whatever. So
we also see Rhaenyra's relationship with Alicent Hightower, because obviously she's the daughter of the king and Alicent's the daughter of the Hand of the King, and they're very similar age. Yeah. So they seem like best friends. But also, there's a couple of looks Rhaenyra gives Alicent, and I'm like, I think there's a bit of love in the air here as well.
Interesting.
There was a few looks, and I just got the vibe.
Yeah,
and we operate on vibe here.
Yeah.
From the first scene, there was a look that she gives her when she's getting in the cart at the opening scene when she flies on a dragon. I'm like, well, that was I'm checking you out look. So I'm just throwing that out there, and I'm all for it.
Yeah.
Absolutely all for it. But yeah, and you sort of see that relationship start to get established throughout, and then obviously the continued build-up of King Viserys' obsession and this dream, and he keeps talking about this dream he had. And you're just like, why is he talking about a dream like it's reality and that's what's going to happen about a son being born? But then we learn later that the Targaryens sort of establish a lot of their rule off of the dream and dreams. And we do know in the future the Mad King had some dreams as well.
Yeah.
So a common thread of the Targaryens. And he's just like, no, I know you're going to give me a son. That's going to happen. And they're setting up this festival in the honor of the oncoming heir. But we do see Daemon establish himself. He's Lord Commander of the... is it the King's Guard? No, it's the Gold Cloaks.
Yeah, the boys.
The boys.
The boys.
And he just... Of the City Watch. And he just goes around and fucking brutally massacres a lot of people, chopping off heads, hands, limbs, balls. That was fucking gruesome, dude. That was... It was a lot. It was a lot. And I was like, okay, this is Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
This feels like brutal Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
And Daemon seemed to fucking love it.
For sure. And I think that was, a moment, because I guess Game of Thrones, like, it's not that much, like, older, but I guess you sometimes consider with things like this, like, are we in a period now where people are going to be, like, not take to, too much, violence and stuff, and, like, all of that. So I guess it's nice to see that, like, overall, I think this episode as well does a good job to, like, be like, we're doing the same stuff we were doing before. Like, we're not dumbing it down, or we're not, censoring it. Like, the show is still, it's still got all those things that make Game of Thrones. And so, seeing this sort of visceral violence and what, Damon is doing here, and, even, like, enjoying doing that, it works to characterize him, and then, like, ground that in the Game of Thrones sort of, the whole tone and the vibe. And I thought that was good. It was nice to see that they're not shying away from stuff like that. That it would be silly if they did, but you never really know, I guess. It was, it's good to see.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I definitely, I felt like it was more gruesome. Like, I felt like they were establishing that this time is actually more brutal than it is in the future.
Yeah.
In terms of the way you see the tournament go, with the jousting, we never saw afterwards people killing each other after these tournaments. After the tournaments, that was sort of it. You saw like a glimpse of it in season 1 with the Hound and the Mountain, when the Mountain kills his horse.
Yeah.
After losing, but we didn't see, like, we see a whole bunch of, as this tournament begins, and we see a few different houses, and the fact that some people see Rhaenyra, the sister of the king. Again, it's going to take me a while to remember all the names. Rhaenyra is our main character. Rhaenyra is the aunt.
Oh my god. Of course, yeah.
That some of the houses actually are still supportive of her. We saw that the Baratheon bloke wanted her favor. The queen that never was, he called her. And there's just all these relationships that's clearly going to build into something, especially for Rhaenyra, who is the heir, and I'm sure she'll get advice from her aunt about how fucking... I mean, I think we even saw in trailer her mentioning how tough it's going to be. No woman's ever sat in the Iron Throne, and the pressure that is, and that's a whole tension of story arc. There's also Damon that clearly wants the throne, and this episode does a very good job at establishing why he should never have the throne.
Yeah.
And why they don't, at least those in power at this point, don't want him on the throne, especially Otto Hightower, who seemed, I don't know, I got Tywin Lannister type vibes in terms of a bit manipulative and certainly looking for his own gains.
Yeah.
Much like the Littlefingers and the Tywins of Game of Thrones. There's always those characters that are, as much as they're there to help the realm, there's also a lot of benefits for themselves. I didn't think too much of the action within the tournament. Like, it was just more about those relationship buildings and those conversations that were happening.
Yeah. It was almost like just like kind of like a backdrop, and I think it was like a nice sort of, I don't know, like visual sort of representation of these different houses sort of like butting heads. I feel like it was sort of like almost like this is sort of like the start of, what will become a time of sort of, I guess, like these different houses coming against each other sort of thing, like a turbulent time sort of thing. I just thought it sort of worked with these conversations as well, where you'd like, you're finding out at the same time, what's happening to Viserys' heir and everything, and you're learning about that, and you've got these conversations going on. It sort of worked as a nice sort of visual representation, I guess, of what it means for the world of Westeros, I suppose, at this point in time. Which was, I don't know, I thought that was quite nice. Although maybe it was a bit like it went on for a while, and like I kind of got it, I was kind of like, okay, I get it, but like then it just kind of kept going, and it was like, yep, we're gonna keep jousting, and it was like the dialogue and stuff kept it interesting, obviously. So then that was the main important part.
But there was a lot of jousting.
There was a lot of this episode was jousting, yeah.
Yeah, it was. But amongst the jousting was the shock horror scene of the episode, which was when King Viserys and his wife was in labour, and the labour was not going well, and it was sort of establishing that both the baby and her are going to die, but they could save the baby if, while she's alive, they cut open her belly and pull the fucking baby out. And dude, this scene was fucking horrifying.
Oh, yeah, it was. It was fucked.
Especially, like, it starts off the idea of it, you're like, hearing about it, you're like, oh, fuck, that sounds fucked. What's that going to be like? But then once they start the procedure and you hear her actually going, like, and screaming for help and not wanting it to happen, you're like, oh, God, this is not okay.
Yeah.
This is just not cool. I'm not vibing with this whatsoever.
Yeah.
Oh, and then how much they showed of it and her scream, like, dude.
I know. They really went in.
I've got it up right now. And we were all looking. I was like, everyone's sitting on the game. We were all looking away. I couldn't watch. I could not watch. That was fucked.
It was really rough, especially and the way like what's gonna happen, and the way he's like talking to his wife, being like, holding her hand and being like, "I love you," and then like her sort of realizing what's happening. Like it was just like the whole thing was so. It was a lot.
Yeah, and that it felt like a Game of Thrones moment in the sense of like, this is something Game of Thrones would do, but they haven't done it before. So it felt like this new, big, shocking, wow, Game of Thrones in your face moment. Like when you see the mountain squash Oberyn's fucking head. Mm-hmm. It was just that sort of gruesome of like, they're cutting this woman open. She's dying to pull this baby out and she's screaming, there's blood everywhere, and they're showing so much of it. And then you have this moment and I'm like, it'll be a girl. It'll fucking be a girl. And we're all sort of waiting for that moment. And then you find out it's a boy and you're like, oh, wow, what a relief. But the look that the Grandmaster's sort of giving is like, congratulations, you have a boy. But he sort of gives this look and we're looking to like, is it like deformed? Like what's up with the kid? And then everyone's sort of getting news and leaving the tournament. And the next thing you know, you cut to Rhaenyra crying, Daemon behind her, and clearly we're at a funeral and you see the pyres lit and then you see her mother's body there, but then you see a baby's body wrapped up and realizing that they both died in that moment.
That's so rough. That's just God. Like it, and I think it does a really good job also to like, it does a lot for Viserys as well. Like, for his characterization, like who he is, and to like set him on, where's he gonna be in episode 2, like mentally, like how is this gonna affect him, like because not only did he lose his son and his wife, he chose to kill his wife basically, and then his son died anyway. So it's like this, he had to go through that. He also, obviously, he doesn't have the heir that he originally wanted. His plans have gone in a different direction. It's a lot to go through, and I think you can see as well, like, he obviously cares for his family. It's not like he's a cold-hearted, horrible person. He just did it because, he had to do it, and he didn't really care. Like, obviously, this has affected him. And I think this is sort of like one of those big, a big moment for a character like that. Especially one that's supposed to be a leader and is supposed to be the king. Like, how is this going to affect, his rule going forward, sort of thing? I think, it could be interesting to see if that has a large impact. And I think that works well.
You also see an important moment between Daemon and Rhaenyra, which is him trying to push her to, do her sort of duty and be there for her father. And the one thing I think that bonds the two of them is their relationship with Viserys, which is they both just want his approval and attention and communication and a relationship. That's what Daemon wants. He just wants to be he wants to be the hand of the king. He wants to be there for his brother. He wants to have his brother make him feel important and that it respected. And all Rhaenyra wants is, she's felt like all her father's wanted is a son. And she even says in that moment, I hope in the hours that she had a brother that her father found happiness. But it was a very spiteful way, she was saying. And I just think that's a really interesting way that they're connecting those two characters, that they have that same sort of dynamic with Viserys as well. And then you get the whole moment of like, clearly some like, okay, they're going to do they want a Daenerys Dracarys moment. And they're obviously making that connection of that too. Rhaenyra is, to us as an audience, she's the Daenerys. Or the closest thing to, a Targaryen woman that's strong, powerful, and that where obviously they want us to root for. Yeah. Until they don't, out of nowhere.
until they suddenly don't and decide to change it. That's fine though.
On a whim. And then obviously the line of session gets really discussed. It becomes a big argument. The small council's like, what the fuck? You can't be Daemon. You didn't have a son. We've got to talk about this. Who's going to be, and that whole debate happens. And this really was a whole episode of debating the crown and Game of Thrones and using that to establish a relationship, using that to establish the characters, using that to establish story dynamics and what's going on moving forward. And that was a really interesting moment where we really see the Game of Thrones start to be played.
Yeah.
On all fronts. We see Otter Hightower send his daughter to comfort the king, and that's like, that moment of like, oh, you've got to be fucking kidding me.
Yeah, because you do as well, I think, for a lot of the episode, I felt that Otto was pretty loyal, like a pretty, good guy. But it you get to this and you realize, like, now the king is vulnerable, and there's, the potential for, getting yourself more power at some point, sending his daughter to do that. You're like, okay, everyone is sort of playing this game now. Everyone's trying to get one up on the
Nothing's
king.
Changed. Nothing's changed.
And I like that.
172 years, nothing's changed.
Because as well, like, you're sort of led to sort of, I guess, trust the king's inner circle, and to see, Daemon as just this bad guy. But there is that moment where, he comes to see him and he talks to him and he says, like, the council sees you as weak. I wouldn't let that happen. I, would only empower you and everything. But the king still, he sends him away and he still trusts his people. But we know, like, from what we've seen, obviously, behind the scenes, and we're like, oh, they don't have his best interests at heart. Like, maybe that wasn't the right decision. And then it adds some, like, nuance into it, because you're like, okay, so now the people we thought we could trust, we don't necessarily trust. And, like, is Daemon completely, like, a bad guy? Is there some merit to him? Like, does he actually just want the best, for Viserys? And it, it makes it a lot more complex, a lot more complicated. And I think that sets up a lot of things for the future of the season to explore and see where it takes it, which I think was just, like, a really interesting moment. By the way, as well, I just want to point out the Iron Throne looks sick in this show as well. I'm just looking at the scene now. It looks really fucking cool. I'm a big fan.
It looks very good. No, it looks very good. But yeah, there's a lot going on there, and it isn't. And Daemon's still, the heir, I guess, until he goes into a whorehouse and is pretty much laughing at the fact that his sister is dead. And he's still the heir, and that's pretty much the pushover point for Viserys to remove him from court and make Rhaenyra the heir to the Iron Throne. Obviously, there's a lot of discussion that happens here, but there's quite a scene between Daemon and Viserys.
Yeah, it's a good scene,
and you have the King's Guard sort of like bordered between them. Separating them, and it's a good, I guess, metaphor of that power and that separation between the two of them, and that wall has always been, the throne and that power, and it's Daemon clearly is. That he wants it, because I think the show makes you think that, but in his actions, it's not really clear that he wants to just be king. I think he just wants respect and approval.
Yeah.
There's simpler things for him. I don't necessarily think he's a bad guy.
Yeah.
Fully. Brutal, yes. Arrogant, yes. Is he bad? I don't know yet.
Yeah.
I'm not ready to say he's bad.
And I think that's what makes it so interesting, because it's going to be explored, and we're gonna see, which will be, it'll be interesting.
Then we get a really good scene, I felt like. It's like an old dragon skull, this fucking enormous dragon, the biggest we've ever seen, and just establishing that he was the last living creature to see Old Valyria before the Doom, where the Targaryens came from before Westeros, and he pretty much tells Rhaenyra that she will be the heir, but he does it in such a way to pretty much explain the plot of Game of Thrones, that the Long Night's coming, and it was established by Aegon in a dream. That's why he came to Westeros, because a Targaryen, the only way to defeat them was a Targaryen had to sit in the Iron Throne. That was the prophecy. Pretty much the prophecy of Azor Ahai, the prophecy of Jon Snow coming, and he has then they show the dagger. It's the dagger Arya uses to kill the Night King. Like, it's sort of that they establish a clear connection between this show and the purpose of this show and Game of Thrones, and why them being on the Iron Throne is important to Game of Thrones. I liked it a lot in the moment. Reflecting on it, I'm not too sure if it was too on the nose for the show, and trying to establish that that's the reason that Targaryen sit on the throne.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how to feel about it. Like, in the moment, I really liked it, but I don't know if it makes full sense.
Yeah, I think potentially in tying it so heavily and just outwardly just saying it exactly as it is, like, and we know exactly what happens. Like, he's like what he said was exactly what happens. Was like, okay, so
other than a Targaryen isn't sitting on the throne, Cersei fucking Lannister's on the throne when the Night King's defeated. True.
And so I guess the one thing, the question it begs is, like, so is this show, what is it going to explore? Because, like, we know how Game of Thrones plays out. We know how it starts. We know who's on the throne. We know how it ends. We know what happens with the Night King. We know what happens, with all of that. So if the entire point of this show is for them to be like, okay, we've got to stay on the throne because this is what's got to happen. It's like the prophecy. It's the, the dream. A Targaryen's got to be on the throne to be able to defeat what's coming from the north. Then, I mean, does that then not negate the entire point of the show? Because we know that doesn't happen, and, like, I don't know.
I guess maybe in some ways, but from what I understand and what I do know about, what I do know about this series and this show is that a lot of Targaryens and a lot of dragons, when I say a lot of, I mean all the dragons, die.
True.
And that's sort of what happens around this time. So, like, I guess that's partly the risk of it. But yeah, you're right. I mean, we do know a Targaryen is at least on the throne up until Robert's Rebellion, which is not a part of this show and is a long, long time after this.
Yeah.
So what is the purpose of the show? Does it have its own purpose? Like, it establishes its own connection. It establishes its own cast of characters. It establishes that it is a Game of Thrones. What is its own purpose? I don't think we know yet.
Yeah, I think that's the only thing, I guess, for me, is that with Game of Thrones, like, it was fun to sort of speculate, who's gonna, be on the Iron Throne at the end, That was, like, well, at least.
And I guess we don't know that either. Like, if you don't know the story.
Yeah, I guess so. But we know the Targaryens keep the throne. We know that happens.
Yeah, but you don't know. You don't know which one. You don't know who. You don't know how. Right?
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah, and there could be. Yeah, it could take it in a bit of a different
is it Rhaenyra or is it Daemon or is it someone else? There's another Targaryen. Like, we don't know. Yeah. What's going to play out next once Viserys dies? I mean, we do if you look up, like, book details and shit. But if you don't, you're just watching the show. You don't know. Like, there obviously is the tension there. Why spoil it for yourself? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I did, but I've already sort of fucking forgotten, to be honest. Like, I know made certain events that happen, but I don't really want to look back into it. I just sort of want to enjoy the show and forget that I know things.
Yeah. Because otherwise, like, what's the point?
But it was cool to see everyone swearing fealty to the next heir, because we haven't seen that before with the king being alive, because it was always in Game of Thrones that thing of, like, the king's dead, who's the heir, and people fighting over who does the next right, and
yeah.
Here they make it very clear. This is the process. We just had all the major houses swear an oath to the crown and to her that she's the next heir, and they'll honour that in name of King Viserys, first of his name.
Yeah.
Like, that's a big deal in front of court to do that. And then it's like, well, you have to honour that as the next heir. That is established. That's done unless he has a son with this fucking Hightower girl, because I feel like that's where this is going.
Yeah. And it's like, how's that? Yeah, I guess what the point is of the show is to just explore the political conflict that comes from a point like this in the history of Westeros, more than it's to have, like, a definitive point, I suppose. Which is, in a way, actually more interesting than the whole, like, Game of Thrones, like, the world's gonna end because of the evil, White Walkers and stuff. So I guess I kind of do appreciate that as a purpose of the show, is more to explore, you know, what happens, you know, what do these other houses do they keep their loyalty, you know, is there, what sort of fighting are we going to see, how is the politics going to play out to get us to the point that, you know, we already know where it ends up, but like, you know, how do we get there and what happens and what's the drama that we get to, you know, explore in the characters and their relationships and things. So I suppose it doesn't need like a huge, you know, purpose necessarily. But
man, did it really get the vibe right?
It truly did.
It got the vibe of that, the throne room scenes right. I'm like, man, this feels like Game of Thrones. The actors, like you said, were great. Costume design, great. Sets, great. Yeah. We see Damon leave with some woman of his on his dragon at the end as well. And the tension is already building. And obviously there's going to be a bit of a time jump at some point, whether that's in the next episode or in a few episodes after. But we've established who the current king is, how he feels about it, who the next heir is, but who also wants to vie for the throne, who is also playing the Game of Thrones and manipulating things. Some major overarching things in its connection to Game of Thrones with why Targaryen sit on the throne and why they wanted to sit in the throne originally, and that secret of the dream of the long night, and to fight against that. And dude, I fucking dug it. I loved it. It could not have been better.
Yeah. It was fantastic.
It just could not have been better.
I think it was the perfect opening. It established characters, it established tone, it had a great soundtrack, it looked really good. Great writing, like really good pacing, just everything. Yeah, it's just fantastic. It was, and I think it's really cool to be here for, you know, the first episode of a new Game of Thrones, because I started watching Game of Thrones when it was just starting its 4th season. So, like, I wasn't there from day one for Game of Thrones. So, to be here, you know, day one, to be able to talk about it and, you know, discuss it with everybody and everything and talk about it on podcasts and stuff is really cool. It's quite a, you know, a unique thing to be there at the start of a show like this, and that hopefully can be as, you know, impactful as, you know, Game of Thrones was in its day. So yeah,
and the fact that the same, like in the credits, the Game of Thrones song was playing, like it is built up to that classic, like, and you're like,
so good,
fucking oath.
It's so good. I said before, because they used a little bit of the Game of Thrones theme in one of the trailers. I said on Twitter, I was like, I don't know whether I love it or hate it, but I definitely love it
because
in
this
show.
is Game. It's not just House of the Dragon.
Yeah.
This is still, it's called Game of Thrones House of the Dragon.
Yeah. And I was worried. I guess I was worried that maybe, I mean, I'm just very cynical, and I was just worried that like the show would be a very different thing, but would then still use the Game of Thrones music just for the sake of it. But it made perfect sense to use the Game of Thrones music. Like it is Game of Thrones, which is, you know.
And I'm glad they did the cold open to start this episode, because apparently they're not going to have the opening title sequence until next week, the next episode.
Yeah, I did hear that.
Now, I want it to just be the Game of Thrones intro.
Yeah, I think I do.
But with it set now. And I think that's just what it needs to be. Normally, I'd want them to have their own intro, but I just think it can... Same music, same theme, just have its own thing. Even if it's like a bit of a remix to it, but it's more or less the same. Like they do a Dearly Beloved, like it's still Dearly Beloved at the start of every Kingdom Hearts, you know? But it's like a different mix of it. But I think it needs to be that.
Yeah.
That's how I feel.
I think that'd be really
the same
cool.
way, I think it was a different mix in the credits as well for it. It wasn't quite, I'm listening to it now.
Yeah, I think it was different a little bit.
Just slightly.
Yeah, just a little bit. It gives it
I'd
a
love
bit of a different vibe. But yeah, I think that would work, because it is Game of Thrones, and I think they've earned it and established at this point, like, this is Game of Thrones.
Yeah, they did it the right way by not doing it in the first episode. They're like, no, let us sell you that we're Game of Thrones, and then we'll be Game of Thrones.
Yeah, for sure.
Loved it. Great episode to start the show. Can't wait for next week and to follow on for the next 10 weeks. House of the Dragon. Let us know in the comments, what did you think about it? Obviously, if you're an As Always member over on patreon.com/AsAlways, you can head over to our Discord for As Always members, where there is a House of the Dragon spoiler chat. Please don't spoil the future of this show. If you read the books, that's not what it's for. It's just for the show.
Yeah, just for the
show. So if it hasn't happened in the show, don't fucking... Because I saw some people doing that, and I'm like, please shut the fuck up. This is not a spoiler chat for the book. It's a spoiler chat for the show. Don't be an asshole. But thank you everybody for tuning into this episode of the As Always podcast. We'll see you in a couple of weeks. I'm sure we'll talk more Game of Thrones then. And we'll see you next week for the Four Pillars podcast and the Clubhouse podcast over on patreon.com/as always. So again, just as little as $1 a month, you could have it over there and get exclusive access to almost 150 episodes of streamable Clubhouse episodes, the best podcast on the internet. And at the $5 tier and above, you get on the credits at the end of every single podcast, including this one. So thank you to Ollie the Superior Ollie, Baron Keen, Damien the Non-So Orange Gnome, Ferentino, Flash Paradox, King Richard III, Olbrick, Ryan Hafer, Bullsack47, Aragon, Kimasaba Gamer Cream Pies, hashtag Make the Nice Guys too, please, for the love of fuck Hollywood, Adam Sundling, Alfie Rodbert, Andrew, Big Dick 6699, Ben Higginson's Thankful, Through Stick Brethren, Benedict Clobbers, BFHC, Biggest Fucking Virgin, Bodge, Biko Overlord, The Elder, Brian Ford, Call Me Daddy, Callum, aka I used to be Thefness, but then I took an arrow to the knee, Christian0210, Condor Rose, Bull in the Alley, Disciple Alaric, Eli, Emil Catborg, Redito Hacker, Ethan Dean, Fat Fuck Cuck, Fishy, Furious Coco, Gene, Gimme a Penis, Ginkgo Swag, Gwen Hughes, Hamid the Weeb, Jack DG 1998, Jaden B. Bennett, Joe the Famous Scarab, John Lang, Josh Duvillier, Josh J. Anderson, Joshua Mori, Kid Ghostly, Liam Loden, Lucas R05, Lumistrad, Mario 5380, Master Bass, Max H, Muddy Unicorn, Nick Miller, Otic World 7, our best and favourite mod brownie, Play the Rules, Radok, Ravjar, Seth, Son of a Bitch, OG Dogger, So James Hates the Batman too because he kills people, Spiky Bucks, Spell Joke, the Blue Cow, Tony Walshy, and Zeppo. Thank you, you sweet vintage lads, for helping this podcast, and we'll see you next time for another episode of the As Always podcast. Thank you, and goodbye.
See you soon, everybody. Bye-bye.